Hello, my friends. John LaRuffa here with another Straight Up Solo. And in this episode, we're going to take a look at playing Viscounts of the West Kingdom solo. Let's see if this solo mode will satisfy your desire to play this game and own it. All right, folks. And remember, please like and subscribe to my YouTube channel so I can grow my fan base. Okay, so here's what the game looks like after a few rounds. I've played three or four turns, and just kind of getting it going here. This is the main board where you're going to be doing all of your playing. And what you're going to basically be doing is moving your Viscount around and stopping on spots that let you take certain types of actions depending on where you stopped, and using your tableau here with these cards to show how you're going to pay costs and how much you move and all sorts of other stuff. It's a very, it's a unique, intricate kind of system. It's not really like a rondel, so to speak, as much as it is I don't know, it's like a pseudo rondel, I guess. So there's a lot of different things going on in this game. First of all, there's some deck management, all right, or deck building, I should say, where you can purchase these different cards that are on the board that are better than your regular ones that you start with. They have more, these will usually have more better icons. They'll have special abilities here. They'll give you something when you purchase them, and they generally do something that's better off in that regard. The other thing that you'll see on the board is these scrolls, and these scrolls are part of the game. You transcribe them. Basically, you have to have a certain amount of cross value or ink pots and things like that, and that will let you take this particular scroll or book or whatever you want to say, and get the reward. Plus there's some set collections, so you'll get points at the end of the game for having all four of the different colors. If you can manage it, you'll get several points there. Plus if you get it's like the usual standard, like 1 for 1, 3 for 2, etc. It kind of ramps up, and then also if you end up getting 3 of the same color, you can get these bonuses over here, which are permanent, which would let you, always have that in play from now on, giving you, 2 of those trade value that you can use to pay for your actions. And then on the center of the board, you have this spot right here where you're going to be using these people to basically kind of do like an area control sort of thing. But it's not really so much area control as it is, you go to these spots, and when you have a certain number of people here, whoops, that was great. When you have a certain number of people in the spot, they kind of like divide and conquer and move to different spots, and then they move up, and when they move up, you get these rewards. And that happens until you get up to here. When you get up there, you will get this card over here that lets you get 5 points at the end of the game, plus increase your hand size by 1. So the final thing that you have is you have these spaces out here, which you can build these buildings on, that you have 3 of each type, okay, and there's 3 types of buildings. And when you build a building, it will unlock some kind of reward. In this case, it unlocks your ability to move 1 extra space if you want. This one lets you have a permanent building resource. This one lets you discard a card when you're in this phase from your hand to the top of your discard pile to cycle things more. And you have to build the types from left to right, and the more you build here, the more points you get at the end of the game. And there's different things that they do. Then there's this whole track here that has to do with basically like your good deeds and your bad deeds. So your corruption marker over here, and also this is your, I forgot what it is. It's not sanctification or whatever, but I'm sorry, I forgot. Basically what this does is this moves this way, and when these meet, you're going to have a situation that happens, which I'll talk about in just a second when we get to it. And so that's basically the setup or what you've got going on. You also have these debts and these land deeds. The deeds are good, they're worth points. The debts are originally negative points, but when you pay them off, you get resources. And there's 3 types of resources in this game. There are these ink pots, which aid in paying for that transcribe action. There's the gold, which aids in paying for putting people up here. And then there is the stone, which aids in paying for your buildings. The AI has a whole setup here customized for them. There's 4 different customization options, and I'm playing the one that favors building in this game. And it's kind of cool how they work, and I'll kind of show you that too. So he has his own setup as well as you having your own setup. So let's go through a couple of turns or do the game flow, and I'll kind of show you how it goes. So on your turn, you're going to usually have a hand size of 3 cards, okay? And you basically follow this kind of path that reminds you of what you're doing, left to right. So the first thing you have to do is you have to slide these cards over and effectively kick one off. When you kick one off, if it has an X symbol, you will do something, okay? So in this case, the journeyman will be kicked off into my discard pile. These guys will slide over, and that means I can acquire a person for free for where my guy is standing, and he's in this quadrant here. So I'll go ahead and acquire this missionary for free. When I acquire the card, when I get to do the plus side, I have to discard, or I can discard a card as kind of a bonus. And I'm going to do that because the discarding of the card might help me kind of, move things along faster in my deck. So I'm just going to discard this guy here, the Squire. All right. Now I'm going to play, a card. Actually, I take that back. I'm actually not going to discard the Squire. I'm going to discard the Lender. And I'm going to play I'll save him for later. I'm going to go ahead and play the Laborer here, okay? So what I do now, after I've done that, is I check to see if I've got any of criminals on my board. If I would have criminals, I have to increase my corruption. I don't. Criminals are the ones with the little skulls, the purple skulls in this spot, and there are none here. But you can see over here, the deck collector, he is a criminal, and if I bought him and brought him out, that little symbol would act as a wild for paying for things. So there's 3 ways you pay for stuff depending on your action. Actually, I'm sorry, there's 4. If you take a merchant action, then you're going to count the number of little sacks that you have here in blue, and you can also add coins to it to increase that number. And you're going to look at where you're standing, and that's going to tell you what you get. In this case, 2 sacks would give me 1 stone. And there's lots of different things that you can do. You can do 3 sacks to just actually destroy a card, get it out of your hand or the top card of your deck. You can get other resources, you can get money, and you can flip over debts and deeds, okay? So that's the merchant stuff that you do. Also, the other thing you could do, I told you, is build. So when you build, it's going to be the total number of hammers that you have. In this case, I have 1, all right, plus any stone. And I'm going to build this turn so you'll see that. You can bring people into the castle, and that has to do with this symbol right here, plus the number of gold. And you do it for a rate over here, which is tough to see with that light, but basically 1 of those is 1 guy, 3 of those is 2 guys, 5 and 8. So you can bring more guys and put them up here, okay? And then you also have this action right here, which I've talked about, where it's just where you have to look and see about these crosses, and then you can add the inkwells to them to take those scrolls. So when you put on your guy, you have to look at the coin value, and that's how many spaces you must move. And you have to move according to the arrows. So I could either move across over here for 1 and then go to another space for 2, or I could go down here, maybe in here and over there. And it all depends on where I want to end. If I end in the inside, I can effectively take this action here or this action here, okay? If I end in the outside, I'm going to either be taking a building action, which would correspond to these, or I'm going to be taking merchant action. And I've already told you that I want to build. And the reason I want to build is because I want some more flexibility. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to move 2 spaces, 1, 2, all right? And then I'm going to build. And I want to build this building, this one right here. It costs 5 to build. I happen to have 1 hammer, so it'll cost me 4. And so I pay the additional right here in resources. Now I can build this building, and I put it on this spot right here, and I immediately get that reward, which in this case is to boost up my, I wish I remembered what it was. Let's just call it the sanctity, or not the sanctity, but the goodness, the positive one, where this is the corruption, that's doing the good stuff. Okay? And so if I was to have built and someone else had built there, I built there, we would both get that bonus in between. Okay, so that's what those little lines mean. So there's some of that area play there. But I really did that because I want to be able to move a little bit further if I need to in a turn. That helps with some of the flexibility on where you want to go. So I did that, and at the end of the game, that'll be worth 4 points. Now, before I did that, I could have, if I had the money, spent 2 coins to push this person and send them away on a journey. I would get to do the discard action, but I would also get access to a one-time access to their 2 icons there. I did not do that because I don't have the money, but I also need those icons. They didn't match, but that's something you can do. Now, after you've taken your action, you're also allowed to recruit that person. Same thing, and you basically pick them up. You don't have access to their icons right now, but you do the thing on the right side. In this case, it's another discard, and you put it into your discard pile, and later on it'll come out. And that's how you improve by adding things to your deck as far as cards. Finally, if these two had coupled up, okay, then we would resolve what happens when they're together. So once they come together, they stay together, even if they move back and forth. And then at the end of the round, you would do, let's say they both were on this spot right here. See, all of a sudden this happened when they were right there on that spot. Then you would get 2 coins and you take a debt. And the other player, depending on if they had any criminals, would move over their white marker 1 space to the left. If they had 0 criminals, they would do it. If they had more than that, they wouldn't. And so there's a little bit of an interaction there depending on how things go, where you do something and then the other players have kind of a repercussion situation. Finally, when that's done, you draw back up to 3 cards. And in this case, being a deck builder, I am out of my draw deck, so I have to shuffle these and I'll get access to all of those cards I've been buying, and that's good. So my deck will improve. Okay, and then I'll draw back up to my hand size. Oh, so there's, I get the lender, which I just discarded, and then one of these other cards that I bought earlier, the stonecutter. Okay, and that is what happens on my turn. So those are the things that I can do. Now the AI is actually very simple to control because it just tells you exactly what to do. There are very little choices here, which is good because this game has enough to think about as it is. So these two slide over, we flip over another AI card, and then this will be how much I can pay for. This kind of is the starting pay. And also, these are the icons that I do. I do just basically work top from bottom. So I'm going to get 1 resource here. And the resource of choice is always based on this hierarchy here. So if I had less than 6 or less stone, I would then go over here. 6 or more, pardon me, I would go over here. If I had 4 or more, I'd go over here. And so basically, if I don't have as many of those, I get it. So I would get the stone, all right? Then I come down here, I move him 1 space. He always moves on the outside. And then I just do the first action I can do and I can afford. Well, it says building. And I can afford to build because I have 1, 2, and I can spend, oh, I actually have 3 because this has been unlocked in the previous turn. So I will build on the next building I can afford. So that was at least a 3, but actually because I have these, I can spend 2 more to build a 5 building, which he will do. He'll always build the most expensive one, and he'll put it right here on the left. And that also lets him flip over one of his cards, and he'll flip over whichever one he's flipped the fewest, and there we go. And that's the turn. This whole AI turn goes by within like 30 seconds, which is very good because you can spend most of your time thinking about what's going on here and for your own turn. All right, so that's the basic gist. After that, you go back to your own board, you do the turns. They go pretty fast, and I find that actually playing the solo game is relatively quick. It can be done in 30 to 45 minutes, no problem. Whereas when you're playing with like 2 players, for instance, I played with 2, this game can go a little bit longer. I wouldn't even want to play it with more than 2 because it would start to go really long. But with the solo, this is actually a pretty good, pretty quick game to play, to be in all honesty. Now the game ends when one of 2 things happen. Either this card is revealed or this card is revealed. And when that happens, because basically people take debts or deeds or people take debts, when that happens, you'll play through 1 more full turn and then the end game will happen. And in the end game scoring, you're going to score for all of these different things that have the banners. The buildings, you're going to score for your set collection out there. You're going to score 1, 2, or 3 points for each guy you've put in this spot. And I'm not going to demonstrate that, but again, it's basically, let's just pretend, I guess I'll demonstrate really quickly. If I was to put 3 in a spot right here, you'd put down 3, and then you'd move 1 up, 1 to the side, and 1 over. It's slightly convoluted, but it's actually pretty easy when you figure it out. And there's some rules for like discarding other people's things in there, and what happens when they discard them. You get different things, but that's that's not going to necessarily make or break whether you think this game is cool or not. So it's just a mechanic I didn't demonstrate, but it's pretty straightforward once you get the hang of it. So you're going to score for people out there. You're going to score for those scrolls. You'll score for the buildings. You'll score for depending on the condition. So if the game ends with deeds, you actually score for whoever's flipped the most debt cards over will get 12 points. And the other person would get 4 if when you're playing a 2-player, it skips the 8. And vice versa if the debt was flipped. So long story short, that's what's going on. Let me tell you what I think about the game, and then you can make a decision. Okay, so hopefully that gave you kind of an overview of how the game is played and a little bit of an understanding of just the way the flow is. So let me talk about some things that I don't like first. Okay, we'll get those out of the way. The setup is long. It takes me probably 15 minutes when you have to pack everything out or take everything out of the packages, organize it, sort it, stack it, figure out which cards you're including, figure out the resources that you're starting with, decide what you want to put down for the AI board, etc., etc., etc. It's a long process. Actually, the only real deterrent, I think, about playing the game, the setup takes a long time. Ironically speaking, the game itself does not take nearly as long when you're playing it compared to the way it feels like when you're starting to set it up and it's taking some time. So that's what I don't like. I also have never been a fan of the artwork in any of the Shem Phillips games. I don't know why. I don't know why. There's nothing wrong with it, but the caricatures and the cartoonesque style just isn't for me, and I'm not sure what the deal is there, but it's a turnoff, and it always has been. And you can see way up at the top there, I actually own Paladins of the West Kingdom, same deal, right? I never had liked the art. That's my personal preference. That should have nothing to do with if it's a good game or not. But the setup time is kind of a drag. And that's where it stops from a standpoint of things that I don't like about this game and this solo game. All the other things I think are very positive. First of all, it's not beat your own score. You're playing against a tough, solid AI opponent. I have yet to beat the AI opponent. He's done very well. It provides you a great sense of challenge, but also it hastens the game. You can see him building stuff. You can see him pulling deeds. You can kind of see, it's getting going. It's going faster. Things are going to be running out. Oh, my time's going to be out. If I don't hurry up, I'm going to have time to do this. I love that about solo games. I need something driving me forward to hasten that feeling, to make it feel suspenseful. I also love how easy it is to do the AI. In this case, it's not like if this, then that, if this, then that. No. You follow these steps. Boom, 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 boom. You're done. It's almost so fast you think, am I missing something? Did I forget a turn or whatever? But it's really good. In some of the ways that they've simplified things where saying like the AI doesn't get this or this or this, you just take these actions instead. It all is very elegant, and I really like that. The game itself is enjoyable to play. I like the challenge of having those 3 different scoring areas. 4 different, but 3 different areas you can focus on. I can put a bunch of guys in the castle, get a bunch of things for it, get a bunch of points. I can try to build a bunch of buildings, get points for those, give myself special ongoing abilities. I could try to get those scrolls, which can lead to, not only do they give you stuff, there's the set collection part of it, but they also can give you extra points for you have this many of this or that many of that at the end of the game, so they can add up there. It's just a very fun, branching game that lets you do different things. And so because you can decide to focus on one thing versus another, it's got a strategic element to it. It's not just all tactics. It's not like I just sit down and every time I just circumstantially see what I can do. You can thin your deck. You can try to, avoid doing a lot of deck building and just focus on other things. There's just a lot of different ways to go with it, and I think that's great. And I also think it's great that the AI is easy enough to execute without distracting you from what you're trying to do. That's my main problem with Paladins of West Kingdom. the AI is laborious to execute and it's hard to remember, okay, I'm doing all these other things and I got to figure out what he's doing because of this. And it's harder to move. And I know people say I like that, they like that one more in most cases than Viscounts the West Kingdom when you compare them from a solo aspect. But I think ease of play clearly goes to Viscounts, and that's why I like that one more from a solo standpoint versus the Paladins of the West Kingdom game, because even though maybe Paladins is a little bit deeper and richer and there's a little more going on, and it's it's more exhausting to play. Now I still like it. I'm going to keep it in my collection. I like it. I pull it out every now and then, play through it, and enjoy it. But this game, it's much easier to get to the table and much quicker to play, and that's I think a bonus. So there's lots of good things here from a solo perspective. I almost think you get a better experience with this game from a solo side, because the player interaction in this game is minimal in multiplayer. You've got a little bit of action in that center spot, which you also get through the AI. You get a little interaction when you guys are standing in the same spot, which you also get through the AI. And so really, I don't think you don't lose anything in that experience. As a matter of fact, what you do is you gain a faster play, which is good because as people take their turns, it can take a little bit of time for people to figure out what they're going to do, and then AP kind of distracts you, and then you might lose place of what you're trying to do, and I think it's just a superior experience, to be honest, playing it solo. So that's what I think. Hopefully this was helpful to you, and for whatever you play in the future, I really hope you have a great time doing it. Take it easy, everybody. Thanks for watching.